My name is Dr. Jack Lewis. I'm a neuroscientist, and I'm on a journey to understand everything there is to know about the human brain. The human brain is the most complex part of our body. Many mysteries remain about how this most vital of vital organs controls every aspect of our lives. But over the last few decades, our knowledge has expanded in leaps and bounds.
That was a shock to the system.
Now we're getting ready to push it to the limits, finding out how our brains react to unusual conditions and surprising challenges.
This is the strangest experience of my life.
Let's do it. I'm setting out on a journey.
Nice to meet you.
A journey to meet some people with remarkable neurological conditions.
One of the most common questions is, how is it wired to your brain?
That give us a unique insight into the inner workings of the brain.
I discovered people who are able to remember almost every day of their life.
In this episode, we'll explore the relationship between our eyes and our brains. I'll meet someone who wants to find out why he can't trust what he sees. What other kind of essentially visual hallucinations do you get?
I've seen Tibetan monks, the battery low symbol that you get on your phone.
And I'll find out what the future could hold.
Lenses are going to change. We'll be able to have Google in our vision.
And how good is your view of the world? I'm joined by magician Pete Heat, who'll be messing with your mind to test your powers of visual perception.
Oh my God!
What's going on deep inside your head? Join me to uncover the secrets of the brain. Chin chin. Vision is our dominant sense. It enables us to identify objects and interact with them, to navigate our environment, to read body language, and to avoid potential dangers. On the whole, it serves us extremely well. But is it as accurate as you think? Magicians like Pete have devised a host of elaborate tricks and illusions which show just how easily our visual sense can be deceived.
Which of your senses would you say is the most reliable? Like, which of your senses would you say you trust the most?
Sight.
Yeah.
So if you see something happen, you know exactly what you're seeing. So we've got a pack of cards. I'm going to spread through there. I'm going to get one of you to check they're all different and then to take one card out, right? Okay, so I'm going to spread them so they can see they're different as well. Okay, take one of them out for me. I won't look. Let me know when you've got one. You got one? You sure you want the 8 of diamonds? Because you can change it. Lucky guess. Can you sign your name on the face of the card for me? Yeah. And that's so that when you next see that card, you're going to know it is actually the same card. In fact, if I take that off you and show them. So here's what we're going to do. It's going to start about sort of halfway in, so about there, roughly in the middle. Okay. It's going to instantly jump up to the top. So this top card is going to be the one that you've just signed. All right. Well, it should be there already. You know, let me show you that again. Let me show you that again, because you know we're talking about watching closely. This time you even know what I'm going to do. So you got, all right. So watch the 8 of diamonds. Okay. Can I get you to lift off about half of those cards, about halfway? Perfect. And then put them on top of yours.
See that,
Right. So you put that in there yourself. Watch.
Oh, go home. Go home.
Oh my God!
This time, so that you can see, so that you can see it really is the sign one that's going in. I know you just put it in there yourself, but just so you can really see it, I'm going to leave it sticking out slightly so that you can see the writing on it. Okay. Can I get one of you to push that into the pack? In fact, do you want to do that? Yeah, deal. Thank you. Okay. Nice. And then look in my mouth.
Oh, what? Eyes can be deceiving. What you see is not everything.
I watched so closely at what he was doing, and I was watching his hands.
I think as we trust our eyes because our sight's so immediate.
And it's a bit frustrating to walk away from it and think that you can't trust your eyes all the time.
We're baffled because we put so much faith in our eyes to tell us the truth. Pete's magic is based on a deep intuition for and understanding of human attention.
And then look in my mouth.
By keeping our eyes focused exactly where he wants them, our brains miss what's going on in our peripheral vision. But while most of us might need a talented magician to fool us, just imagine if your own eyes tricked you every single day. I'm on my way to meet a man who's suffering from a serious eye condition that comes with a bizarre neurological side effect.
I've had everything from an Indian tapestry through to the battery low symbol that you get on your phone. I've seen Tibetan monks.
Really?
Yeah. I was on my way home on the bus, and it was winter, so I was already struggling to see out of the window to find out where my stop was. And then these two Tibetan monks just popped in there and just stayed there. And I really couldn't shake it. And I was trying to find my stop on the bus, and it was quite disorientating.
And how vivid was it?
It was like a real high-definition photo.
Amateur photographer Matt Harrison has Charles Bonnet syndrome, where he sees very peculiar hallucinations on a daily basis.
Well, I've had something called Charles Bonnet syndrome, and within that I've seen a variety of things, often very, very bright, contrasting images, so reds and greens, blacks and yellows. I've seen faces.
This syndrome was first described by Swiss naturalist Charles Bonnet in the 1760s, when he discovered that his 89-year-old grandfather was seeing apparitions after losing his sight to cataracts. It was only recognised by medical science internationally in the 1980s, but could explain many historical paranormal phenomena, such as sightings of ghosts. It all started after he developed a gradual loss in his vision due to a condition called macular degeneration, which occurs when a vital part of the eye, called the macula, deteriorates. The macula is a small area at the back of our retina with a big role. It's responsible for the detailed central portion of our vision. In trying so hard to compensate for his impaired sight, Matt's brain has started to dabble in the realms of fiction.
And how soon after you were diagnosed with macular degeneration did the Charles Bonnet symptoms start coming through?
A couple of years, I think, so a while after being diagnosed with something.
But really, everybody's brain is constantly on the edge of hallucination because in low light, for example, things are a bit hazy and blurry, and the brain has to work really hard to extract meaning.
Yeah.
But because in your brain, those receptors that would usually pick up the light have been damaged and deteriorated, then that your brain's propensity to try and extract meaning from limited information is kind of on overdrive and has no information to feed it.
That's right, yeah.
It's estimated that as many as 100,000 people in the UK suffer from Charles Bonnet syndrome, although many are not aware of the condition. In every case, it develops because of severe sight loss.
I've lost my central vision in both eyes, so I still have my peripheral vision around the edges, but the central vision has gone completely pretty much. So when I look directly at you, for example, you don't have a head and I don't really see your shoulders. I can see your hands, I can start to see some of the bushes to the side, and the same over on this side, I can see the drop below.
You do photography. How long's that been going on for?
I've always taken photos. It's got quite serious over the last few years, but it's still just a kind of a major hobby, if you like.
But how does it work? You can't see the central space.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult. I tend to look for patterns. I look for contrast between objects. I like taking landscape photos, so things that don't move, which makes it easier. I'm keen on kind of lines and patterns, so I like things like trees and telegraph poles and things like that that break a horizon. And I tend to be able to pick those up through peripheral vision, and I use those as markers for taking a photo, and then hopefully get the detail in the middle, which is the bit that I can't see. if you imagine a clock face, if I look at 2 o'clock on a clock, I will see what most people see centrally. But I think my interest in photography is more the fact that I like the bits on the periphery. So my photos tend to have something to one side rather than in the middle anyway.
Matt's photos also provide reassuring images of the real world when he can't rely on those that his brain creates.
So I'm really interested to understand the progression of, you said after 2 years, these Charles Bonnet hallucinations started kicking in, overlaying information on your sort of blind central vision. And I'd like to understand more about how they evolved from one form to the next.
Okay.
Where did it go after the Tibetan monks?
I stuck with the tapestry and the face for a while, and then about a year ago I experienced full moving images that interacted with the real environment. One night I went upstairs, it was dark, and on the stairs on the way up there was a snarling kind of pit bull kind of dog at the top of the stairs. It didn't make any noise, but it was there and it was moving, but it was actually interacting, it was there on the stairs. So I was aware of what it was, and I'd already done a bit of research because I just found it fascinating. So I think I'm quite fortunate to have that background knowledge, really. Otherwise, I think it would be very, very scary. And if you consider that Charles Bonnet typically affects people who are elderly, then it might get misinterpreted as dementia.
Yes, of course.
And that's obviously a very, very serious issue.
The next step for Matt is to undergo tests that will hopefully not only explain why and how his brain creates such strange hallucinations, but give neuroscientists a groundbreaking insight into how all of our brains process images. As we'll find out later on, there is a lot more to it than meets the eye.
It's tempting to think that we see with our eyes, but this isn't really true. Our eyes are necessary, but we really do our seeing with our brains. Visual information comes into the eyes and then is passed via some areas within the thalamus straight to the back of the brain. This is the occipital cortex here, and it's this part of the brain that you really do your seeing with.
What Matt's extraordinary condition tells us is that the human brain is capable of creating very realistic images that the eyes can't possibly have seen. But why does this happen? In a less dramatic way, all of our brains are continually going through this process. If our brain doesn't recognize an image as familiar or thinks there's something missing, it can make its own adjustments to reality. Don't believe me? Take a look at this. Here's Pete. He's going to help me make you hallucinate colours that aren't there. If I make him black and white, then nothing seems unusual. But watch what happens when I put a coloured filter over one half of his face, with only his right eye uncovered. The chances are that Pete's right eye appears bluey green, but actually it's still black and white. Look, when I take the filter on and off, you can see nothing's changed. Yet more remarkably, by changing the colour of the filter, I can create a shift in your perception of Pete's eye colour, even though physically it's still exactly the same. This is because our perception of an object's colour is influenced by context, specifically other colours in the surrounding features, an effect called simultaneous colour contrast. Every second of every day, our brain has to process a huge amount of information very rapidly and decide what's important and what's not. There's a really famous experiment that shows just how much our eyes can miss when there's an awful lot going on in the world around us.
Hello there.
Hi.
How you doing? I'm doing a little experiment. There's a demo I've got set up over there. Would you mind participating?
Okay. Sure, yeah.
Yeah?
Let's go.
Wait, I'm Jack.
Nice to meet you, Amanda.
Pleased to meet you. Come with me. Okay, so it's very straightforward. Nothing to be scared of. You're going to see 6 people. 3 of them are dressed in black, 3 of them are dressed in white, and they're going to be throwing balls around. And your task is simply to count the number of times those dressed in white successfully pass the ball from one person to another.
Okay, sure.
Now, only 10% of the population get this right. So if you get it wrong, don't worry. It's perfectly normal. But if you get it right, then you should feel very proud of yourself.
Okay.
You ready to go? Stick the headphones on.
Sure.
Okay, try this at home. Remember, you need to count the passes between the white team only. It's easier said than done. You're going to need to focus. How many did you count?
26. Really? Yeah!
It was actually, most people say
no.
25, but I think you caught the one right at the beginning that happens at the very moment the film starts.
Right.
So I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. However, I haven't been entirely truthful with you.
Okay.
This experiment is actually not about the number of passes. The real question is, did you notice anything unusual?
It looked like they were kind of passing, maybe the black team were it suddenly was kind of like the white team turned into the black team almost, sort of thing, and then like the pass ended up being the black team, and I was like going back.
Because they were crossing so
Yeah.
much. That indeed happened an awful lot.
Yeah.
It's a part of this experiment, but that wasn't the detail I was,
Oh, right, okay.
I was hoping you might have noticed. So we're going to now play exactly what you saw a moment ago, but in reverse, and see if you can spot something untoward.
No way! What?
So this is exactly what happened the first time you watched it.
No way!
It didn't zoom in originally, but that's just so you can't miss
so
it.
weird! You would have so thought you'd have noticed that.
I didn't see that at all.
So the point is, if these people had been much more static, it wouldn't have worked. Because there's such a flurry of activity the whole time, it means that your entire attentional system is actively filtering out anything that's black in the scene.
Right. Rewatching it, you kind of almost feel a bit stupid, to be honest, but it's reassuring that most people felt the same.
It was quite strange. I mean, how do you miss something that insane happening right there where you're looking at?
I didn't realise how selective your eyes were to everything that you see.
And it made me think about what I'm missing during my day-to-day life when I'm focusing on other things.
I'll be on the lookout for gorillas out there.
This is obviously on a video. What about in real life? Would you miss something as obvious as a gorilla coming into the scene?
Oh no! What the hell?
This experiment proves that we really do miss a lot of what goes on around us. It's an example of what's known as selective attention. In other words, our ability to notice what's going on around us is limited. Our brains have to be picky about which things we should and shouldn't pay attention to. At times, this can cause problems. For example, if you're so absorbed in chatting to a friend that you miss your bus. But it's also a crucial function of the brain. Without its automatic filtering abilities, daily life would be simply overwhelming.
The brain has the ability to selectively turn up the volume on different sensory signals to adjust the signal-to-noise ratio of different sensory modalities, but different parts of sensory modalities as well. So what we're learning is that when we pay attention to something in the world, what's happening is that particular neurochemicals, in this case dopamine, are acting to turn up the volume, turn up the gain on that part of the sensory channel. And that means turning down the volume elsewhere.
A man with a deft hand at manipulating selective attention is magician Pete Heat.
Do either of you have any coins on you, any change?
Oh, yeah, I'm something like
that. Perfect, brilliant. What have you got? Dig them out. I'll tell you what would be good would be maybe a 10p and a 2p. I'm going to give you a pen as well. Okay, and on the 10p, can you put your initials on both sides of the coin for me? And seeing as I could potentially have found out your name somehow, maybe add some extra detail. Yeah. Perfect, okay, and while that one dries, I'm going to hold that so they can see it. Okay, that is your coin, right? Okay, so we have a very distinctive coin. Now, on the pound coin, can you draw like a stick woman? Make it distinctive, so make it so that you'll recognise it. Okay. Oops. Oh, that's perfect. There you go. That looks exactly like you. I'll take the pen back. If you show the camera, yeah, perfect. Oh, good. Okay, cool. So it's starting to rain as well, so we'll be quick. So we've got the stick man, we've got the initials. Okay, I'm going to get you to take them both actually for me. So put your hand up for me and take both coins and close your hand around them so I can't take them out. All right, now just imagine that I reach into your hand and I just take one of the coins out. Obviously I haven't, I've got nothing in my hand, but imagine I'm taking one of the coins out. So is that the 2p or the 10p? 10. The 10, okay, so you're imagining I'm holding the 10p. Right, now imagine I take my other hand and I hold it between the two hands like that. And even though it's like a solid sort of metal coin, obviously, from your pocket, imagine it starts to become like almost like a chocolate coin. It becomes soft and it almost starts to melt. I take that coin and I just bend the coin like that, okay? And then I just put it back into your hand like that, okay? Now, did you feel anything in your hand there when I was saying that? No, nothing at all? No. Okay, open your hand for me. And look at the 10p now, look at the coin that you chose. Move the two out of the way. Look at the 10 that you chose.
Oh my... Wait. The 10p is definitely bent.
Open your hand now and look at the 50p. Move this one out of the way.
Oh my God!
Ouch. That makes no sense.
Mate, that's weird. That is strange. No, that's not definitely possible. Oh my God.
I never seen something like that.
He's strong, right? But it's not that strong.
Maybe I was doing it all along. I didn't realise.
I actually could feel something, you know, going on in my hand.
You can trick yourself into absolutely everything. The mind does strange things, I guess.
Say you only use like a certain percentage of your brain.
But that's another level.
You always try and find logic, don't you, in things? But
yeah, that's exactly
I can't find logic in that.
No, that's stuck.
So, what have we found out so far? Well, if your eyes deceive you, you can blame your brain. Matt's extraordinary condition, Pete's tricks, and our invisible gorilla all reveal the same thing. The relationship between our eyes and our brains is far more complicated than you may think. But perhaps this isn't so surprising, considering how sophisticated the machinery is. The way we create images in our mind's eye is a remarkable process. So how do our eyes actually relay images to the brain? Vision begins with light passing through the cornea, which does about 3/4 of the focusing, and then the lens, which adjusts the focus further. This enables a sharp image to be projected onto a sheet of photoreceptors at the back of the eye called the retina. The optic nerve then quickly relays all this information to the visual cortex right at the back of the brain, where different patches actively extract the information and create the sights that we see.
One of the lessons that we've learned is that as you move more deeply into the brain processes visual information at higher levels of sophistication. So the earliest stages of the visual cortex are good at recognizing very simple features in visual scenes, like lines of different orientations, textures, colors. And as you get further in, the brain's able to put these simple elements together to allow us to recognize faces or complex visual scenes.
But everybody's eyes, even those with 20/20 vision, have an imperfection. Our natural blind spot occurs where the optic nerve interrupts the retina in each eye. This means there's a gap, so no light can be detected for that particular patch of visual space. Luckily, the parts of visual space blanked out by the blind spots in the left and right eye don't overlap. Each eye covers for the spot that the other can't see. But it's still there all the same. If you want to find yours, take a look at this. I'd like you to get out of your armchair, close or cover your left eye, focus on the cross next to Pete, and move slowly towards the screen. At some point before you headbutt the screen, you should see Pete's head disappear. Once you've found the right distance, don't change your position and watch what happens when Pete raises and lowers a bar in front of his body. Still no head, but you should see the bar continuously throughout its movement. It's a weird effect, but what you're seeing is the mechanism for hiding your blind spot in action. Your brain's not getting any visual information from that particular area, so it fills in the gap, first with the blank wall, and then by making intelligent predictions about where the bar should be throughout its movement. But when the back of the eye becomes so damaged that the brain can no longer compensate, many people face a future without sight. While an arthritic knee is replaceable with an artificial one, an eye is a whole different matter. The question of how to give sight back to the blind has long been an enigma, even for the finest minds in ocular medicine. That's because the eye is a highly sophisticated organ that's wired directly into the brain. Until recently, the only option for people with macular degeneration was to watch their eyesight slowly deteriorate. But in the last few years, eye surgery has really come on leaps and bounds. I've come to the London Eye Hospital to witness a remarkable new eye operation. It's giving sight back to people who suffer from severe vision loss through macular degeneration. And it's all done by completely replacing the lenses in their eyes with bionic ones, with miraculous results. And the man pioneering this groundbreaking technique is consultant ophthalmic surgeon Bobby Qureshi. I'm lucky enough to join him in surgery.
Hello, sir.
Dr. Qureshi's first job is to obliterate the lens at the front of the eye with a state-of-the-art laser.
So it just goes and hovers over the eye. The laser's making an opening into the lens itself, and the yellow shaded area is the area we're going to break up into many tiny pieces.
After this, there's no going back.
So you can see the fragments being pulled by the instrument here, and just like a hoover, it just hoovers up those little pieces. The aim of this is to remove the entire lens.
2 instruments inside the eye. Manhandling someone's eyeball like that is absolutely mind-boggling.
He'll then place the bionic lens back into the empty compartment.
That's what it looks like. It's about 6 millimeters in diameter, and it's got these legs on either side which help position and center it within the eye. So you can see it's folded up like a taco there.
This revolutionary lens uses technology inspired by NASA. Scientists noticed that the images coming from the Hubble telescope were out of focus and developed a cunning solution using adaptive optics. Mr. Qureshi used this same technique to compensate for the distortion in his patient's sight.
Recess on the cornea, please. And it opens up, it has memory. We just need to make sure it's in the right position. It might look like a normal lens, but that is not a normal lens. And what this lens does effectively is shift the image to another healthier part of the macula. And we let the brain choose which parts it wants to use as the new center of the macula.
Right. That is astonishing. What an amazing operation. So if you imagine the macula as a projector screen with a hole in it, the middle part of the image will be partly missing. But by projecting the image across a wider area, more of the picture reaches the surviving light-detecting cells that still work around the outside. This is basically what these bionic lenses are doing. Will their sense of vision be shifted a little bit off-center? Or will the brain rearrange its connections through neuroplasticity to create the impression that they've got normal central vision?
There's a period of adaptation. So the patient, over time, will learn to use another part of the macula. Now, the visual cortex no longer receives input from the center of the macula and the adjacent area because that area is damaged. And it seems that the visual cortex, the neurons, want to receive input from somewhere, and they start seeking it from the next best place.
Brilliant. And so this bionic eye just facilitates that process?
Absolutely.
And if you think that's impressive, the future of bionic lenses is mind-blowing. What do you think the future holds? Is there room for improvement?
Certainly. There are things happening in the future which are almost science fiction. Lenses are going to change into an array of millions of lenslets, almost like pixels in a screen, and you'll be able to manipulate each one electronically. So we'll be able to zoom in and out with our iPhones and iPads. We'll be able to have Google in our vision.
We'll be back with Bobby Qureshi later on as he meets another of his recent patients to find out what impact this operation has had on her life.
The improvement is nothing short of miraculous.
Sadly for Matt Harrison, this kind of operation is not a possibility because the rare form of macular degeneration he suffers from progresses so rapidly. But he still wants to know why his loss of vision has manifested itself in such an unusual way.
Well, I've had something called Charles Bonnet syndrome. One night, I went upstairs, and on the stairs on the way up, there was a snarling kind of pit bull.
Matt's arrived in Scotland to meet Professor Lars Muckley at the University of Glasgow's Centre for Cognitive Neuroimaging. He'll undergo a number of tests in an MRI scanner in the hope of finding out what's behind his bizarre hallucinations.
Hi, Matt. Nice to see you.
But first, Dr. Muckley wants to trace the damage in the back of his eyes.
So we want to know exactly where your vision is good, where your vision is not so good, and we will map this out. Just tell us whenever you see the green light laser pointer.
Okay.
To begin with, the green light starts in Matt's peripheral vision, where he can still see. Then it moves in towards the impaired central area.
Gone. 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 Gone.
Next, the green light starts in the middle, where Matt's vision is poor, and moves outwards.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
This time, when the appearance of the green light is a surprise, the area of impairment in Matt's eye appears to be bigger. This outer circle is the true area of damage. The difference between the inner and outer circles shows that amazingly Matt can still visualize an image for a short time after his eyes no longer see it.
Then we have these boundary in which you are better when the stimulus comes from the outside. You can follow it and trace it for longer, but when it comes from the center, then it takes longer until you see it appearing.
Absolutely. I've no idea where it's going to appear.
Yeah.
Whereas when it's coming in, I follow a line in, if you like.
So that's your brain is making a prediction and helps
Okay.
you to see it for a longer time. Kind of like in traffic, you trace a car before it disappears, and you can kind of still assume where it is. Okay, thank you. So now we go to the MRI and do a brain scan.
Okay, great.
The MRI scanner will allow Dr. Muckley to see what's happening inside Matt's brain in response to two different tests. First, he shows Matt a series of pictures with a section missing. From mapping out the damage in the back of Matt's eyes, we can see a precise outline of the image his eyes actually see.
That's what we actually present. So a normal sighted subject would see a street, forest, sky, grayscale. This is the same image, but superimposed is what we measure that Matt sees. He can see especially the left lower part and really just the corners of the image.
The big question is, will this match up with the image his brain sees? Or will it conjure up something extra? We'll come back to Matt and find out if Dr. Muckley is able to provide him with some answers. Whilst we can't replicate Matt's unique view of the world, simple optical illusions enable us to experience the difference between reality and what our brain thinks it's seeing. Take a look at this. This is called the Penrose Triangle, also known as the Impossible Triangle. At first, it looks absolutely fine. Each individual corner makes perfect sense as the ball moves around it. But when you put all the corners together, it can't make sense. That's because the impossible triangle is an impossible illusion. But it's not the shape that's impossible, it's the way your brain interprets it. Your brain always tries to interpret a shape as three-dimensional if it can. As you may be starting to realize, your brain doesn't always get it right. It does its best to give you an accurate picture of the main things that are happening around you, but in the process can sometimes create an impression of reality that defies logic. If enough of the visual information makes sense, you can suspend logic, even when you know your brain is being tricked. And when it comes to tricking your brain, magicians are very happy to take advantage.
going to show you something involving a couple of rubber bands, okay? Yeah, check that, just rubber bands, give them a little stretch if you want, yeah? Okay? All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take both of them and I'm going to hook one of them sort of behind the other one. So now they're kind of trapped together, okay? But this one is trapped behind this one. Like, it can't come out without me taking it off my fingers, right? Okay, it can't go through my finger, through my thumb, whatever, it can't get out, yeah? But if you look in the middle where they cross, if I rub them like that, can you see it starts to melt through? Can you see that until suddenly this one is... Shall I show you that again?
Yeah.
Okay, watch. And it really is behind, right? It really is on the inside, yeah? See that? Yeah? Okay, right, watch. And now I'm going to do it a bit differently this time, actually. So watch this band, the one on the inside, yeah? Look, if I'm actually going to take it off my finger and thumb, okay? And I'm going to ball it up into a little ball.
Where did it go?
There you go.
Oh my God.
Where's the other one? It's gone, I'm sick.
They were definitely elastic bands, normal elastic bands, just melting through each other. How could that happen?
He made them together and then apart, but made us clearly watch it.
There's no way you could have done that, but it happened.
It was so real, it's difficult to explain.
It's weird because you don't know how your eye and your brain are separate.
Before I saw that, yeah, I did trust my eyes, but now I don't.
Don't worry, the laws of physics haven't been broken. Magicians do not have supernatural powers. Rather, they're masters of exploiting nuances of human visual perception. They know that the brain can be tricked, and they know exactly how to do it.
So the brain leaps to a conclusion that can't be true. It shows that if our eyes and our brain disagree, the brain wins out. So we end up seeing things that haven't actually happened.
Dr. Muchly is hoping to see this process in action by looking at MRI scans of Matt's brain as he undergoes the tests. He's shown Matt a series of images with a section missing. By measuring the signals coming from the visual cortex, Dr. Muchly is able to see if Matt's brain is filling in any of the missing parts of the picture.
If we look at the activity, we see that the input to his visual cortex is very patchy, very limited. There's only something in the periphery and something in the lower left part. That's a normal subject's cortex. Interestingly, in all our subjects, we can find that this lower part, if it's occluded, is filled in a little bit. But in Matt's case, even though there's smaller patches for feed-forward information that actually comes in, he can fill in much more information, and those predictions are stronger than in other subjects.
So although Matt sees much less of the complete part of the picture, he sees more of the blank part than someone with normal sight. It proves his brain is better at filling in information than the rest of us.
In the case of Matt, we can see that the input is limited, it's patchy, but the feedback allows to recover information and to fill in the gaps, to kind of guess the missing information. If they are very strong, then it's perceived as a visual hallucination. So then pieces of evidence, even noise, can be made to an image that feels very real.
This may explain why Matt can see a pit bull on the stairs when it's just not there. In the second test, Matt's eyes are covered and he's played a sequence of sounds. Dr. Muchly wants to see what happens in the visual cortex when there are no images coming in through the eyes at all. It's the first time this groundbreaking test has ever been carried out.
This works very well. You can see that in the visual cortex there's information that is specific to the different auditory scenes. The visual cortex gets information from the rest of the brain about the auditory scene. Our brain is predicting our environment. So if we hear sounds, we are expecting things to happen.
For Dr. Muchly, this is exciting new evidence that the visual cortex can produce images that aren't actually there, using predictions and cues from other sensory parts of the brain, even when our eyes are playing no part at all.
We want to get a fundamental understanding of what brains are good in processing. Now we understand the brain as a prediction machine. Matt is a very good example in which we can see how the brain is very competent in doing that, and not as simply responding to stimulation, but constantly predicting. The most important evolutionary task of the brain is to predict our environment. That is what gives us evolutionary advantage.
Matt's hallucinations are not just a figment of his imagination. There's hard scientific data to show that in his brain at least they really exist. Incredible stuff.
An important lesson that we've learned in studying vision is that our brains rely a great deal on prior expectations or built-in beliefs about the way the world is. And it's really these prior expectations that are just updated by our sensory input. This means a large part of what we see is simply what we expect to see, and it's these expectations that are just changed a little bit by the sensory data that we gather.
While Matt's type of macular degeneration is currently untreatable, the more common form occurs in the elderly. In fact, 1 in 10 people over 55 develop it, growing to 1 in 2 after the age of 85. The bionic lens operations being carried out by Bobby Qureshi and his colleagues at the London Eye Hospital are a world first, and mean that millions of people will be able to read, drive, watch TV and recognise faces again. Elizabeth Lenton had the operation 6 months ago and has come in to meet Mr. Qureshi to find out how much her eyesight has improved.
Hello, very nice to see you again. Please come and have a seat. Nice to meet you again too, Seth. Please come and have a seat.
Yes,
Okay, so we replaced your lens with the IOL AMD implant, the Hubble lens, earlier on this year. Your vision before surgery was really quite poor and you couldn't read at all. Everybody's macular degeneration is affected to a different amount. But in certainly one eye, it appears you had a very nice island of healthy macula.
Yes.
And by diverting the image there and improving the quality of the image there and a little bit of magnification, resulted in an excellent improvement in vision. How did you find the operation? How did you find your vision soon after the procedure?
Well, it just seemed so good, you know, it was just amazing. In fact, as soon as I left the theatre, I said, I can actually see.
Already, even by then?
Already, even then.
And on the last checkup you had, your vision in the left eye now was 612, which is almost a 600% improvement, really. And in terms of reading, the improvement is nothing short of miraculous, I have to say.
What does that look like on the chart?
On the chart, essentially beforehand, you were literally just picking out the odd letter on this, which is what we call N48.
Yes.
And now, after surgery, with the appropriate reading glasses, your vision is N8 in the right eye, which is up to almost being able to read newspapers and magazines.
I can read newspapers.
And N10 in the other eye.
Yes, yes.
So that is an amazing improvement.
Yes, well, it really did work out far better than we ever expected. And I can only thank you and the London Eye Hospital for the way that you've dealt with Liz and the results that you've managed to achieve.
You're very welcome, sir. You're very welcome.
The results of this incredible operation really are transforming lives. So, think you've sussed out how vision works? Think again. Take a look at this. This is called the Hinton's Lilac Chaser illusion. Keep your attention focused on the cross in the middle of the screen. After a few seconds, you should start to see a green blob chasing around the circle. Keep focused on the cross. The green blob is not actually there. It's called a retinal after image. Once your brain becomes used to the presence of the lilac, it becomes desensitized. So when the lilac disappears, your brain is effectively taking the lilac away from the white that's there, leaving green, its complementary colour. But that's not the end of the weirdness. Keep focused on the cross. If I reduce the intensity of the lilac colour, the green actually becomes more prominent. To the extent that around about now, most people won't see the lilac at all, just the green dot. But if you take your eyes off the cross, you'll see it's still there. Sometimes we see things that aren't really there. Sometimes we don't see what is there. And sometimes, just to really confuse us, we do both at the same time. And if you really want to see the impossible happening before your very eyes, I know just the man for the job. Let's see if you can spot how Pete takes advantage of our brain's ability to get it wrong. Did you spot how he did it? So, were you paying attention during the show? How good is your perception? Our brains do an amazing job of processing a vast myriad of images every second of every waking day. Matt's condition gives us an extraordinary insight into how our own brains construct the visual images that appear in our mind's eye.
About a year ago, I experienced full moving images that interacted with the real environment.
For people with conditions like Matt, the revolution in ocular technology gives us a glimpse into an exciting future.
Lenses are going to change, so we'll be able to zoom in and out with our iPhones and iPads. We'll be able to have Google in our vision.
Who knows? Maybe one day we might all choose to have bionic lenses implanted into our eyeballs to give us telescopic vision. Together, these remarkable stories help to take us ever closer to unlocking the incredible secrets of the brain.